Deep Dive with David Stendhal, where we trade without ego, no emotion, no greed, and no opinion. Before we begin tonight's video blog, please read over our trading disclaimer and remember to trade smart and accept the reality that trading futures is risky. This presentation does not provide buy-sell recommendations, and our information is strictly provided for educational purposes only. As always, trade at your own risk and analysis. Hey, it's David Stendhal with tonight's Deep Dive. It is February 14th, otherwise known as Valentine's Day 2018, and I thought I'd take a look at RBOB today. It's not a market that we actually post signals on the website, but it is a market that I do monitor, and I do at least want to address it and show you some kind of cool things that are taking place here. So here's RBOB. UGA is the ETF. The trend across the board, short, intermediate, and long term, are all pointed to the downside, and the technicals don't look good. However, in fact, also there's a support gap here. So if the market were to fall, it would have little resistance. And so all those are negative. However, if we take a look at the patterns, I just want to show you a couple things that have been popping up here. Basically, we have a surge low that's inactive, or that is active, I should say, and a pop bottom. And what that's telling us is that on a short-term basis, we found some support and some cool things are taking place here. So I'm just going to kind of go through this and kind of show you exactly what I'm looking at. Here's a daily bar chart for RBOB. You can see that here's today's action. It was a nice little up day, but we actually had some major support for the market with the 24. Now that's still running, still can get larger. Just simply means the last 24 days have held as a support, and the bigger the number, the stronger the support should be. The other thing is that if we go back in time, we can see back through here we had a 37. Where it was acting as resistance. Now it's acting, because it's above it, this level, it's acting as support. So the fact that we had this 37 here, you project forward, it's not going to be exact, but it's going to at least give you an indication that the market should find some type of support. This one's been brewing here for quite some time, so this is no major surprise here. Now what we got is a couple things where just in the last couple of days that we're starting to get some oversold conditions that are beginning to recover. In other words, the sell-off that we've been having, that it got into oversold territory, and it's starting to build out a bit of a base here. And so today being a bigger day, it's kind of the first sign that we've actually seen this. So a target to the upside would be the 1.7813 level, which is the 50-day moving average, and right over here is the resistance that we'll be running into eventually, assuming the market heads higher, and that's at 1.8266. You can see when I pop up this little window where it says resistance, that's what this level is right through here, and this is a pretty strong one, so this is the one we're going to be looking at. Now I mentioned that there's a support gap. I'll just show this to you really quick on the website, that if we were to take a look at the market as of yesterday, it's not taking into account today's action, we'll be doing that in a little while, but had the market sold off, and still even where it is right now, if it were to reverse and sell off, that there's a big gap here, 648 to 539, there's a big support gap, and that means that if it should break that level, it would have little resistance, going down to this 1.539 level. It's only going out to 3 digits, but you at least get the idea as to what's taking place. So for right now, the way that well, the other thing I want to at least point out here is that here I've shown you the support to the market, the resistance to the market. Here's some weekly charts. You can see that the sell-off that we had been having with today's action kind of reversing at least a little bit. It might be short-lived, but we'll see. Here is some major support to the market. In this case, it's if you can see that number, it's the resistance level, 1.647. If I got that right, let me just see that again. 1.6457, excuse me. So that's where the support to the market is, that if it is to sell off, we've got major support to the market right through that level. Again, these are weekly bars, and so it's hard to see there, but it looks like a 34. A 34 on a weekly chart is dramatic. That's something that you really want to take and pay close attention. We've got a little extension here for the 7 right through there. They're different numbers, but they're in the same vicinity. The further back you go, the more refinements that have to be made. So this little 7 is probably a little more accurate. That's 1.6634. So in that particular instance, that's the more accurate of the two numbers. But because they're close to one another, you can sort of attach them to one another. Just think of the secondary number as being more of an update, if you will. So in any event, the other thing I want to point out is the market has sold off. We had some of those patterns that I was referring to. I'll just show this to you real quick since we're on the page. Where what we have is a surge low and a pop low, pop bottom that occurred yesterday, and we have another surge low that's occurred today. So it's come down to that support level, and we might expect some type of a rally. Now, again, we don't have any systems that we're posting to the website. We actually have them, but we don't post them to the website because it overwhelms the computers, quite honestly. But the closest proximity or closest market I can show to you would be crude oil, which is actually flat right now. It's not exact, they're obviously highly correlated, but crude oil is actually flat right now. And so if the market is to rally, you could do pretty well either in the RBOB contract itself or the ETF, which I personally never traded, but the ETF being UGA. So if you don't like futures and you want the ETF, that would be the one to at least look at. The other thing I'll point out here is, now I'm going to preface this. Anytime we look at seasonal charts, you want to make sure that they're seasonally accurate. In other words, is the current year following suit with the 5, the 10, the 15, the 20-year seasonal charts that are out there? And if each one of those phases is accurate, meaning that this year's action is following suit with the seasonal tendencies, then we get a ranking. And if all 4 of those phases are accurate, then we have 4 out of 4. If only 3 out of the 4 are there, then obviously that's still pretty high. So I'm cautioning you by saying that right now we only have one of the phases that is actually accurately following the market. I believe it's the 5-year that with all the action that's been happening. So here's theoretically, at least the way that the seasonal charts are looking at it for the accuracy of the market. Did sell off here, but I just want to point out that seasonally we do see big bounces in RBOB. In this phase, we're in the very beginning stages of it. It's not seasonally accurate right now, but it's at least gives you some type of a guideline what traditionally will happen. And because it's such a big move, I'd rather tell you about it now rather than tell you when it's further in and the correlations start to pick up here. So if we look at the 5 years or the 10 years, you can see that the seasonal tendencies are up. Now, the fact that the market was up, a fair amount today, that could bode well for the support level that I have been talking about, both on the daily and the weekly charts, and we could see a bit of a bounce here. We'll just have to wait and see. From our perspective, we're obviously going to be looking at crude oil, and as I said, that's flat. But if you want to trade RBOB, then at least you have some guidelines as to what to look for. And if you don't trade the futures and you want to trade the ETF, then you've got one that you can at least look at. It also would bode well, I think, obviously for crude oil. But that's a different market. Obviously, they're highly correlated, but still nonetheless a different market. But I wanted to at least address something that I hadn't really talked about in a while, in part because of the bounce that we saw today, the great support that we're seeing to the market, and because this is such a cool chart. And I wanted to at least point out that we could see a nice rally here in RBOB. So we'll take a look at another market tomorrow and see what we can do. Thanks very much for watching.